Saturday morning and you shared your time. So let's go. So let's talk about where we can get stuck as women in medicine. And then how do we find more choices and joy? And the 9 things I'm so glad that I know today. I do have a handout in the chat. So I did share that. And if you're having any troubles getting to that, just put it in the chat. And I'm glad to send it again. All right. So let's go. So busy women docs. What is our life like? So we're busy, right? We feel like toast some days. We're tired, but yet, we can learn, right? We're really good learners. We're very good at that. We've perfected that over the years. There's not a problem. It's just that if the more we learn, the more we can feel supported, the more we have new tools, to just find that joy and meaning in our workday. So we're here to learn. I see you. I hear you. I know you're all rock stars. You're doing amazing things, and everybody works in such different areas in medicine. But what is this day here today for? So this is for busy women docs who want to help others, who want to feel creative, who want to acknowledge that they've accomplished a lot, but they want to keep growing. They really have that joy. We all have that joy in learning. I just saw something that there was, it was like KPG, women's golf, women's summit leadership or something. And there was a CEO there of, I don't know, some big golf, association. And he was like, well, in your work environment, you should, number one, be around people that value you. Number two, you should learn. And number three, you should feel support. So I thought those were all great things. Like, does everybody have that at work? So we have done a lot to get into medical school, to get through medical school. And now as, if you're staff and you're like me, like 30 years in, I'm still looking for something exciting, and I like to keep my days interesting, and I want to keep learning. So I thought those were great goals that CEO shared, have an environment of people that support you, keep learning, which is why we're here today, and then have that group support. And we do that in Brain Hammock. That's my new program for women docs, and we'll talk about that. But that's what we do. We have a community in there so that we can support each other. It is women docs only, and so that we can learn from each other and share resources and keep growing. And do you want guidance on how to take those next steps? Because it feels scary. But you still want to have meaning. You want to have deep impact in this world. I don't know. I hit certain birthdays and I kind of reevaluate things. And when I hit 50 some years back, I thought, like, this is it. Like, there's an end date to my career. There's an end date to my life. And I just want to make sure that I've done everything I can do with all the gifts that I've been given. And what I'm good at. I'm not good at everything. You will not get any fashion advice here, makeup advice. Nope, not my thing. But I do love helping people tap into neuroscience tools. So what are we going to go over today? Let's make sense of the challenging environment that is medicine. Let's get some insight into the culture of medicine. I've never really seen that explained well in medicine. So I dug deep into the literature of culture and how to figure it out. Because once I kind of understand the structure, that's probably why I'm a neurologist. I like to understand the structure of how things work. And I couldn't figure out culture. So I had to dig into more of the business literature about that. So we'll share that as well. I'd like to call it brain wonder, just some curiosity. We don't have to know everything about the brain. It's kind of like, an Apple iPhone that, I love my Apple iPhone. I use it, of course, all the time, but I don't want to know everything about it. My car, same thing. I don't want to know everything about it. I want to make sure I'm doing everything I can so it works for a long time. So I really brain wonder is similar. Like, why do we have to know everything about the brain? We don't. We just need to know what we need to know about neuroscience strategies so that we can navigate a high risk profession, which is medicine. High risk for what? High risk for burnout. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But we know the literature suggests, and there was recently a Mayo Clinic professional well-being report saying that 38% of our colleagues are in severe emotional distress. And that's a global survey, and that's all healthcare workers. And that's pretty concerning, right? So we want to make sure that our colleagues are well, that we're doing everything we can, keep ourselves well. And those, that level of emotional distress is contagious. So we want to make sure that there's some kind of clear neuroscience framework that I'll share what helped me and what I've been using with my clients in Brain Fresh. That's my business, Brain Fresh, and our program is called Brain Hammock, the one for women docs. And also let's learn from other professionals. I've been hanging out with women in medicine and for years and years. And then I started hanging out with women in business and other business leaders. And I got a business coach. I got another business coach because I wanted to know like what's happening in other areas and we can bring that back to medicine. And there are solutions to help us find purpose and meaning professionally. So if you want to put in the chat, like which one sounds interesting to you today? Talk about the challenges of medicine, the culture of medicine. Have you learned, a great way to understand the culture of medicine? If you do, please share in the chat. I would love to have some more resources. Brain wonder, how does that land? It's no judgment. We're just there to, find more ways to um, understand our neuroscience. We talk a lot about our heart and our emotions coming from our heart. So everything we hear kind of in the public lay, uh, you know, personal development literature talks about our heart and our head. Well, our heart is not where emotions come from. Our emotions come from our brain, and so do our ideas. So if we don't know something about both of those things, then how are we going to really work at our highest level? Anyone want to share their most interesting, list here of what we're going to do today? I personally love, kind of digging into the culture of medicine. So let's look at what, in business, how they describe organizational culture. This is a model called Shine's 3 Levels of Organizational Culture. The image, I think, really says it all, that there are 3 levels. One is very clear, like an iceberg, that you can see it obviously. It's just more obvious to you. If you are in a building and it's a medical building, because people are in white coats, you might see, stethoscopes. For me as a neurologist, you see reflex hammers. You'll see different tools that neurologists have. You might see surgeons in scrubs and the hats. You see the nurses. You see, the medical assistants, the therapists. So you'll see, usually when you're in a medical building, it's very obvious. You look around that it has tools and artifacts and norms and behaviors that you would see in a medical area. But what's below the surface a little bit there are the norms and values. And when we go to medical school and we train as residents, we have certain norms and values. Number one is, patients first, of course, and learning everything we can so that we are really productive, efficient, effective docs. And so we study hard, we learn all about different areas of the body, we learn how the body works, we go through all of that. But what are the norms and values in the medical culture? Well, of course, one thing we're always trying to avoid are errors. So in order for us to take a step, we want to really make sure we've done a big, solid checklist and we've covered all our bases before we make a change or try something new. So the norms in medicine, we have to realize, because we don't need those norms in our personal development. We don't need to be so strict on our checklist before we take a move. But we do in medicine, right? We absolutely have to honor the fact that it's patients first and that we don't want to take any risk and ever put a patient at risk. And so those are the norms that are there. And then the next level down are assumptions and beliefs. And those are more difficult to get to, and they're not clearly stated a lot. So we may say, my assumption going into medicine is that it would be equal for me. Like, I'm in medical school. I went to the same classes and courses as the gentleman sitting next to me. But my experience is that we don't have the same opportunities because my leaders are not the same percentage of, females, males, race equity. I don't see in medicine. I don't see gender equity. So there are things I assumed would be there, but they're not there. And so we have to realize that it takes a little bit longer to get to that deepest level of culture, that there are assumptions and beliefs there. One way that makes it really easy for me to understand is to think of it like a pond. Like, where are these beautiful flowers floating in the pond, and culture is the dirty water. And it's full of nutrients, it's full of dirt, it's full of history. I personally myself love a good lily pad, So in the brain hammock course, our first stage is like is the lily pad stage, where you just kind of have to come in, sit down, and learn how to brain prime. So you just have to make sure you know how to optimize your brain for a good work day, a solid, productive, fun work day, where you feel like nailed it. You can get home, you still have some energy left. But culture is a lot like this, to be like this pond. So there's a lot of things floating. There's beauty coming out of it, right? And there's plants growing in it. So these plants need a lot of what's in there. but it's not really clear what's under the water, right? So that's that deepest level of culture. So we can start with what's it like for women in neurology, because that's my area. I'm a neuroimmunologist. So with my area, with this survey goes back to 2019, yeah, is when it was published. So it was pre COVID. So they surveyed. This is a wonderful group of docs. Some of my friends are authors on this paper. Really amazing. And so they surveyed women docs, like, how is it for you, women neurologists, and asked a lot of questions. But what came of it is they, over half didn't think they had time to actually do their work, to do all the documentation. 42% at that time had symptoms of burnout, which is very high. And 35 were like, it's okay. They didn't really feel strongly either way, which isn't really a very positive thing, because you want engagement with work, right? You want someone to come in with ideas and to bring their good ideas. So you don't want this like, work's okay kind of thing. You don't want neutral. They were reporting really high stress work environments, not a lot of control over their work schedules, a lot of hours of work, and then gender discrimination, unfortunately, still continues. But what about women in medicine? You know what? We do great work. So the literature suggests we do really good work. We have high quality. We really stick to preventative care guidelines. We provide holistic care. So the outcomes of women in medicine is great. Like we are doing really high work. And this has been documented in various manuscripts. This is not the only one. This one goes back some years. So does this sound like you? Like, you remember that day you got that acceptance to medical school? You're like, oh, I'm so excited. And now when you go to work, you're just kind of thinking like, ooh, how am I going to get through that day? And you're looking around for opportunities or options or choices, and because around you see inequities. Unfortunately, there are persistent inequities in medicine. And you hoped for more. You hoped to be feel fully valued at work. You feel kind of stuck. You're not sure, like, what are the next steps? And you wish someone would just bring it on a platter, like, hey, here's a cool idea. Think about this. You're really tired of those annual reviews where just the same things are said and you're not offered any kind of growth opportunities, but you really love to learn. And these day-to-day struggles at work are difficult. There's things I didn't clearly learn in a book, but I, realized over time, is that medicine itself is a high risk profession for burnout. And from what I read in the literature, that seems to be because of its high emotional interchange between the patients. And that's most of our day can be high emotional exchanges. And it's a deep personal bond that can be tiring, so, and there's a lot of reasons, of course. There's a lot of systemic reasons. But I like to go back to neuroscience. That is my strong bias. I love neuroscience. So I like to share neuroscience tools that can help us kind of navigate like a GPS. When we work in a high-risk profession, we can use something I like to call brain priming, brain aligning, and brain designing. So how to design a really interesting career according to what neuroscience tells us. So anyone want to put in the chat, what was the year that burnout was first reported? What do you think? Anyone? Put it in the chats. 93, 92, 84. Guess what, guys? 74. I mean, my gosh, I was single digits, but I was around then. It's been around a long time. So I don't think a good answer is just to wait till the systems are clear of burnout. I don't know, because it's been around for 50 years. The AMC has in 2021 had a report that a lot of healthcare systems are giving people the title of well-being expert, well-being champions. But in this paper here, it said a lot of them were not given any training or any funding or any time to do this. So I actually know some well-being champions, that burned out and left medicine. So we're trying, people are looking for fixes, but I don't think the fix is to ask people to do more with no training, no funding, no time. That doesn't make any sense. That's like magical thinking, right? So the problem is there's no brain class. Like we all should, if you ask me, we should go through brain class. Brain class is, for busy growing professionals. So we figure out what we need to do for our neuroscience so that we have high creativity, high clarity of what our next steps are. And we never connect our emotions with our work productivity. We talk a lot about the heart, and the heart is not where emotions come from. So we don't even speak of accuracy in our neuroscience, right? And all kind of even new books coming out. Everyone loves Brene Brown. I love her. She's really kind of broke the mold and sharing all kind of interesting information to help us navigate. But her book is about the heart. It is about emotions, and that's how we understand it in the lay press. But it's not accurate. So I think as physicians, we can at least use some accurate language, about the importance of emotions and our workability, right? So I didn't really learn that we could figure out how to brain prime so that because we do work in a high risk profession, and that there are tools that will improve our professional well-being. And why not set those tools early? Again, we're hearing a lot about wellness, but we're hearing it from people that don't have any time, money, or training to do it. Um, and there are people after your attention. There's something called attention economy, that people want your attention. They have all their job is to try to grab your attention. We see that with social media. Do you guys ever go on Reels or TikTok or something? So what they do is they've used what they've learned with slot machines, how brains like color and they like it to change and they like a little reward once in a while. And they did that with social media, Reels, TikToks, YouTube has shorts. So all of those things, like I got stuck. I was looking for some new Christmas crafts one time, and I started watching Reels on people that do all this kind of stuff with dollar store stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was like an hour and a half. And it just like caught me, like my brain couldn't get off. I literally had to say, put down the phone. And that's what happens is like there's an attention economy that knows how your brain works and it grabs it. So we have to know what we're up against, right? And culture is like another language. When I was starting to look a couple of years back, maybe 5 to 10 years back, I was looking for kind of my next interesting thing in medicine. And I started going to innovation meetings, like, what happens in innovation? Because I thought, why aren't there women docs innovating? Because I feel like we're very creative and clever. And so I went to some innovation meetings, and it was like another language. Like there was all this business language, and everybody's in dark blue suits, mostly men, few women. And I thought, I need to kind of crack that culture. It's a whole nother, it's another culture. So businesses. So that's why I got myself a couple business coaches and tried to understand the lay of the land. And I'm working on that with my coach training to help women know how to build their own business and steps along the way to break it down into small steps. Okay. So, and I like to learn from other professionals. I like to build our own power so that we feel the power in our own eyes and others see our power. We have to do both. Like we have to believe it and others have to see it. And so we talk about this in Brain Hammock, how to build both, right? And how to be really clear on knowing what your values are and your strengths. In neuroscience, we call that your connectome. So how your brain is connected. It tells us what you're really good at. This mix of things that only you are really good at. That's your connectome. So we really go over that in Brain Hammock so we can figure that out, print it out for you so that you're very clear on what to say yes and no to. And work can help us feel important and useful in this world. So work does have some good, maybe, it's possible for negative consequences, but work has possibility for lots of positive consequences, right? Be able to support my family, learn new things each day, meet really interesting people, be challenged and keep learning in an environment that's always about growth. So I'm very grateful for medicine for a lot of reasons. But once you adapt to what we're going to talk about in Brain Hammock, it's like you'll feel less stuck because it'll be a little more clear, the pathway, right? You feel less confused, less disorganized. Like, what do I even do? You have a couple hours to yourself on the weekend. What do I want to do? Or just like it's the same cycle, like the churn. My husband sometimes calls it the churn. We're going to have a really clear 9-step framework to use lifelong. So it's not a destination. It's not like you're going to be done with this. It's just something you can always keep tapping into. And you can feel empowered and clear and understand the culture of medicine and why we do kind of hesitate to take a new step, because we're socialized that in medical, we're socialized about that, like that in medical school and in training. We're very hesitant to try something new because of the risk. So we have to know kind of our socialization in medicine. So what are we going to do? What's it going to look like after this? So women docs are going to feel empowered, informed, enthusiastic, brave, and courageous. who am I? Who am I to share all this with you? So I'm Dr. Mary Rensel. I'm the mom of four. Some of my kids are sprinkled through here. I started two businesses in the last few years because I was looking for something exciting. I knew, again, after I hit that 50th birthday, I was like, there is an end date, and I want to make sure I've done everything that I always wanted to do. So I wanted to learn more about business. I thought about an MBA, but I was like, all right, I'm just going to get business coaches and jump in. So I'm a neuroimmunologist. I'm still working as a neuroimmunologist, and I'm boarded in neurology, integrative medicine, and I'm a fellow of the American Academy of Neurology. And I'm the owner of Brain Fresh and a co-owner of Brain Ops Group, where we serve residents and nurses and they're building their professional well-being foundation. So say yes in the chat if you want to hear the 9 steps. Again, another beautiful, you're like that little lily pad floating on the pond. And the pond is all full of all kind of stuff. That's our culture, right? So if you don't have the handout yet, just put it in the chat and we'll send it to you, or just get a piece of paper and a pen. Grab a pen, have a sip of coffee. We're going to dive into to the 9 steps. Ready, guys? All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop sharing here and I'm going to go to a whiteboard. So get out your piece of paper. We are going to do this together. All right, guys, here we go. Oops, let's not do this. Let's do this. Okay, we're going to use this little template. It's kind of fun. So we're going to start with like what we've been talking about, brain priming. Brain prime. And then brain align. This is the framework. These are the parts, the pieces of the framework, okay? So write this on your piece of paper. We're going to start with these 3. These are our 3 big buckets. And then we're going to talk about what goes into each bucket, okay? So these are like the 3 main lily pads, if you want to think about them. Brain prime, brain align, brain design. So let's stick with brain prime, okay? So in brain prime, we want to, number 1, we want to find your fun. We're going to talk about why these are important. We want to protect your melon. And these are the areas that we focus on in brain hammock too. And then we're going to fine tune the balance. Okay. So that's for brain prime. So those are the 3 things of brain prime. So go ahead and write that on your handout or on a piece of paper. So we have brain prime, align, design. Under prime, we have find your fun, protect your melon, fine tune your balance. Okay. Under align, we have gain guardrails because boundaries are everything, right? Gain guardrails, strengthen your gifts. So that's when we really jump into what are your strengths, and gain your guardrails. We really look at, values. And then it says believe in belonging. Okay, so those are the 3 things in brain align. We gain guardrails, we strengthen your gifts, and we believe in belonging. We'll walk you through the process of those. And then under brain design, we have expand your support. So we'll talk about why you need a growth team and accountability in the growth team. And then we'll talk about why anger is important, because so angle your anger and how we'll share, some stories about, there's a great book. It's called Beat Burnout, Kick Burnout in the Butt by Steve Burglass. I think that's it. Something like, Kick Burnout in the Butt. Steve Burglass is called. So he talks about, he's a psychiatrist and a coach and a lecturer, author. He talks a lot about some examples of where people had severe Oh gosh, I mean, just life-changing events, like the woman that started MADD, MADD, so Mothers Against Drunk Driving. He told her story that it was a mother whose daughter was either killed or very hurt by a drunk driver, and then she went to his court arraignment, and he wasn't really given much punishment for what he did to their family, so she said, this doesn't seem to be fair. And so what Steve Berglas talks about are people who take their anger or frustrations from the situation, but then become advocates for the issue. So what does that mean? So like this woman, she was like, this is completely unfair for her family. And she could have kept her anger just about what happened to her family. But instead, she started getting involved in local government and then national government. And then she formed this group called Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and which of course we all know about. So it's gone national. It has national, groups, across our whole U.S. To inform people, to support people, to reinforce the importance of not driving drunk, because it can have major consequences to your life and others. And she's been incredibly successful. So it's not that she's any less sad about what has happened to her daughter or what have you, but she took all that anger and disappointment and formed this huge new movement, right? So he had a few examples of that. And he was saying in his book, Kick Burnout in the Butt, is, if you take your anger and you angle it a little bit into advocacy, you can feel empowered and you can make a difference for the next generations. And that was the other term he used, is generativity. So people feel important. Like awards are great. Like if you get an award, like, oh, that's amazing to get recognized and stuff. But the kind of the joy that comes with getting an award doesn't last for years and years. But these kind of becoming an advocate and working to change the next generation, like what we're trying to do with medicine, that can last, like that can have lasting effects. So that's something you want to do, is get involved with something that can have lasting effects rather than just sit in your anger. That's what that's talking about, which I thought was really neat. And he explained it so nicely. And then we're going to talk about building your courage. So these are the 9 areas where we're active in brain hammock, brain prime, brain align, brain design. And so when you think about these, let's go over them just a minute and say, okay, find your fun. Like, would you give yourself, if you had to say you're yellow, red, or green, are you sometimes putting fun into your week? Are you never? Or are you, oh no, I'm good at that, I always schedule something fun? What would you say? Let's just say, so I'll watch the chat. Let's just say, find your fun. Okay, so maybe you're green on that. Maybe you're really good at finding your fun. Awesome. I'll tell you, a lot of my folks for the brain priming, when they come in, my clients, they're kind of yellowish. They protect your melon. I mean, most of my clients are physicians. So they know what to do. It's not maybe what they're always doing. And then fine tuning. That's something we can do throughout our day to help our focus and our energy. Almost like what elite athletes do. If you read HBR, they talk a lot about building your professional capacity. And one way to do that is to really be strategic about rest in your day. And what we know is the neuroscience of that is that you need to get some parasympathetic into your days. You can't be only sympathetic, which is on focused, getting your work done, right? So where are you with the fine tuning? Do you ever take 5 or 10 minute break in your day, or do you just go, 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 go? Like yesterday, I had patients, I gave a lecture, finished a grant. I was just like, oh my gosh, when I came home. Like, so did I take any minutes to, like 5 or 10 minutes to take a break? Maybe when I was walking over to my lecture, maybe I was just trying to like look around and just, kind of soak in the colors and the leaves and the breeze and things. So yeah, I mean, I think there's times when, we're good at that, or there's other things we need to do, right? So, okay, let's go to brain align. What would you give yourself? A yellow, red, or green on brain align? Do you know your core values? Do you know your core strengths? Do you know the power of belonging for you and your teams? I'll have to say most people are pretty red on brain align, my clients. So that's something we usually need to work pretty hard on. Okay. What about brain design? So do you have a good, solid growth team, maybe like 5 or 6 people you can check in with? Do they hold you accountable? Do you share your goals with them? Do you know about advocacy and how to take anger into advocacy, or what to do with all anger? And do you know that anger is a secondary emotion, meaning most of the time we feel devalued, scared. So anger is not usually the problem. There's usually something below anger. And do you know how to build courage by taking a step? This is where we have to realize how we're socialized in medicine is not to take a risk because it could put the patients at risk, right? But in personal growth, we can instead act more like an entrepreneur and just like there's a book called Move Fast and Break Things, right? Like we don't see those kind of books in medicine, but that book is for entrepreneurs to try things, keep going, try things, keep going, iterate. So, that's the growth mindset, that Carol Dweck's book, Growth Mindset. If you don't know that one, that's a wonderful book. But she walks you through, you're trying something, you learn something from your trial, you change it a bit, you reiterate it, and you try again. So this is okay in personal development. So I'll have to say most people that come into my courses in brain design they're generally in red. Yeah, so they're generally here. Design. So we usually have to start from ground zero there. Okay, so these are the 9-step, what we do within Brain Hammock and what we focus on, and Brain Prime, Align, and Design. Got it, guys? All right, so let's keep going. I'm going to close the whiteboard, go back to the slides. Okay. So that was our formula. So which one is your favorite? So put it in the chat. Do you like the design, the align, the priming? Of course, another lily pad there. They're beautiful. They remind me of MRIs of the brain, so that's why I love them. Well, and I love nature, so that's why. Okay, so what we've learned today is there are steps to make sense of the challenges in medicine. We have some insights into the culture of medicine. We know there are 3 layers to the culture. We know that brain wonder can help guide us because we do work in a high-risk profession. We know that many of our colleagues are in a high emotional distress level, and that's contagious. So my impression right now is everyone in medicine is trying to fix burnout, but I feel like there's probably too much emotional distress there for us in medicine to fix it. That's just my opinion. But what we know about emotional synchrony, that we share each other's emotions, that makes sense to me, that we're trying to fix it from the inside. But there are also big national groups like National Academy of Medicine and other large groups, Surgeon General, et cetera, trying to propose these frameworks of wellness or well-being at work. I feel there's a clear neuroscience-based framework, these 9 steps that really help me, and I use them to navigate with my clients in Brain Hammock. I like to learn from other professions because I feel like we don't have all the answers in medicine, and why not learn from another profession that already, has solved a lot of these problems, and there are solutions to help us to feel like we have purpose and meaning in our work. So again, back to these beautiful lily pads and a beautiful flower. Let's just talk about this brain priming, aligning, designing, turn up our brain wonder a little bit and make some sense of navigating this culture. So we all have a choice. We have a choice. We can keep doing the same thing, get a lot of status quo, or we can change. We can take one action, right? How are you feeling? Are you feeling like you're ready to take an action? Are you feeling like I'm good? I'm going to sit back and keep doing the same thing. How are you feeling? Action? Why don't you just put action in the chat? All right. So who doesn't love a good hammock? So my new program is called Brain Hammock. Why? Because we work in a high-risk profession, and why don't we just use all these neuroscience tools to support us as we work in that profession? So, and why not use our whole brain? Why not just admit that our emotions and our ideas come from the brain? I'm quoting some articles here. If you want to read something about emotional intelligence and skill building and coaching, I'd highly recommend you reading Dr. Boyatz's book. Any books, or any of his manuscripts. He's well published. He's at Weatherhead School of Business, which is a Case Western Reserve University in the MBA program, and he teaches coaching, and he's a really great lecturer. If you ever have a chance to hear him, definitely hear his lecture. He's very entertaining. But he did some really interesting studies looking at MBA students. So they're typically older, 45 to 55. And when they knew something about emotional intelligence and emotional setting and setting goals according to some emotions, like something that's exciting for you, something that means something to you, and building skills, when you put those two things together, they had way better improvement in some of their business goals projects, so they had sustained improvement 40 to 75% higher than people that didn't talk about emotions with their projects. So it's really important to improve on self-confidence, leadership, helping, goal setting, action skills, to talk about both things, like where are your emotions, just knowing emotional assessment, and also building skills. So what do? I love, sharing just neuroscience tools, strategies, this framework that you can use in your life, because your life is unique. Your life is not my life. And I made a course and a membership site called Brain Hammock. And I made it a membership because we know the neuroscience of learning is I can tell you everything in one day, but you're really not going to remember it for the long run. But if we keep reviewing it and learning about it each month and trying new skills each month and talking about both things, what our emotions have to do with work and building skills, that, just like that study showed, people were 40 to 75% more successful at long-term skill building. So we do that within Brain Hammock. It's a membership. I have a membership site where you have access to my time management course, my productivity course. Why do I do this? I do this for the same reason that I was a Girl Scout leader to 3 troops. I like this cute little picture of, I just found it online, but of Girl Scouts. I really believe in the future. I believe in women. I believe in girl power. I believe in girl teen power. So, there's all the studies, there's many studies that suggest when women are empowered, society changes. And even just, I saw a really great example of, it was an international program, it was a global program where they took people out of their small villages and they taught the women some engineering skills, just how to see a problem, how to solve a problem, how to unite with the team, and to look at various solutions and go ahead with the best solution. And it really changed, what was happening in these villages. It was really neat. So I just feel like sharing learnings will really elevate and empower women. And I know as women, we always share it with other people. So if I teach somebody, I know they're going to teach other people too. And I personally wish I had some of these tools to help navigate medicine way earlier. I mean, I would always ask people, like, how do you do it? How do you do it? How do you do it? So I would get little bits and pieces from different people of how they made it. But yeah, I wish I had it way earlier. So if you want to check this link out, you can copy this link. You can look at Brain Hammock. I'll send it to you later. You have a coupon for attending the webinar. So the coupon's good for a week. So you can check it out, think it over. But join us in Brain Hammock. It's a monthly membership. I do workshops in there. You have access to the time management, the productivity course. It's there if you're looking for some strategies. If you're looking for support, new strategies as a women doc, check it out. Just think about building that hammock of support for your brain, because we all do work in a high-risk profession. And people say, well, it's not me, it's them, it's the system. And that's true, but we're there working, and burnout's been reported since the 70s. So I don't think it's going away. And I can't sit back and wait for it to be gone before, trying any of this stuff. So I'm going to do what I can do. This is where my empowerment comes in. I know that I can put these things into place, and I have found a way to keep, my work life interesting over the years. So feel free to use that coupon. It's called Surprise. And then just reach out with your questions. Feel free to email me at thebrainfresh@gmail.com, or put it in the chat, and I'm glad to answer your questions. So let me know your best takeaways. And then feel free to check the link. Anyone was a Girl Scout here? Put it in the chat, Girl Scout. I love it. All right, send me your questions. Feel free to email, and have a wonderful day. Thanks, everybody.